First up, we're in Kissimmee, Florida, for a double murder trial. The defendant, Jason Clare, is charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and aggravated assault with a firearm. Outside this bar, Clare shot and killed 2 brothers, James and Joel Kuhn, after they had apparently beat him up. He claims he was acting in self-defense, citing Florida's Stand Your Ground law. But now during the trial, it's the families who are fighting. After a hearing was canceled, friends and family of the victims and the defendant find themselves in close quarters. The man speaking is the defendant's stepfather, James Zeke Parker. He appears to be addressing the man in the green shirt, James Kuhn Sr., the father of the murdered brothers. The man trying to push Parker back is a friend of the victims, Jeremy Millian. Millian takes the first swing, and it's the only one he'll get in. The defendant's stepfather counters with a right overhand and sends him, a bystander, and even a police detective to the ground. After mowing a path through the crowd, the defendant's stepfather squares up with the father of the victims, while an officer pulls out his taser. After a flurry of punches, they tumble to the ground before being separated by officers. All 3 men were arrested.
Sorry, he hit me, Bert. He hit me. What am I supposed to do? Just like your son, double team people. We've seen 3 of them in there dumping on me.
With Jeremy Millian leaving on a stretcher with an injured jaw. Each man was taken to jail and charged with what's called a fray. They were also banned from attending all future trial proceedings. As for the defendant, Jason Clare, he was found guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder with a firearm and 1 count, assault with a firearm, and was sentenced to life in prison without parole.
David Hall.
Next, we go to a bond hearing in Broward County. Judge John Hurley presiding. The defendant is David Hall, a sovereign citizen who basically believes that certain laws don't apply to him.
Mr. Hall has declined the services of the public defender, Your Honor.
Hall is here for driving under the influence and driving with a suspended license.
Mr. Hall, DUI, expired driver's license.
Good morning, Judge.
As soon as the judge attempts to read the charges, Hall begins interrupting.
Sir, I haven't said for the court how I'm appearing today, sir.
I'm not asking you yet. Just give me a moment, all right? I need to look at your record.
Turns out Hall is currently out on bond for 2 previous charges of driving with a suspended license. But that's not going to stop him from trying to make his case.
Sir, today I'm appearing as the agent and settler for David Hall.
Okay. Could you get Mr. Hall for me then, sir? Where is he?
I go by that name, sir. My name sounds exactly like the defendant's, and I'm here to settle that matter today.
So are you and David Hall one and the same person?
I'm not a person, I'm an individual. David Hall is a person. I am a private individual.
Hall's legalese is unconventional, to say the least, but the judge allows him to continue.
May I say something else for the record, sir?
Go ahead, sir.
I appear here today as the settler, agent, not the person, but the individual. And I don't think I should have you understand the
So
difference
you're the
between a
settler
person and an
and the
individual.
agent, and you're the individual, but you're not the person. Is that correct?
Correct.
Got it.
Correct.
I'm going to write that down.
Judge Hurley is unfazed by Hall's attempt at a Jedi mind trick and begins to turn the tables.
Here's what we're going to do. The settler, the agent, the individual, and maybe even the person, David Hall, has been charged with DUI. So today, the court's going to set the settler, the agent, the individual's bond, and even the person's bond today, $10,000, because the settler, the agent, the individual, and the person continues to drive without a driver's license.
Hall's new bond is $10,000, but because this charge is a violation of his original bond, all versions of David Hall must remain in jail unless he can come up with the cash.
Both cases will cause the settler, the agent, the individual, and even the person, David Hall, not to be able to be released from the Broward County Jail until further notice of the court. So,
May I post bond, sir?
Now it's Judge Hurley's turn to have some fun.
Well,
Is there any other?
are you asking me as the settler, the agent, the individual, or are you asking me as the person?
Sir, I'm asking, as the individual appearing before you today, the
Wait, who are you
opportunity.
speaking on behalf of right now?
Sir, I don't understand that question. I believe that you're trying to confuse me now. I'm not the person, sir.
Okay, when
I am
you
not
see the
the
person,
person.
David Hall, tell him he's not leaving jail either, all right? Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Come on. Down the middle. Let's roll.
Why would I be arrested? Can you please tell me? Can you please tell me?
Because of allegations made against the police officer, so.
Next, we're in family court in Las Vegas, Nevada. 26-year-old Monica Contreras is here to vacate a temporary restraining order filed against her by her estranged husband. The routine hearing lasts just a few minutes, and Contreras' 2-year-old daughter joins her just off camera.
So I'm just going to close the case out and dissolve the order.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
But before Contreras is able to leave, courtroom marshal Ron Fox takes her to another room to perform a drug search, while her daughter plays with hearing master Patricia Doninger on the bench. Moments later, Contreras is back in the courtroom. But there's a problem. She begins telling the other courtroom marshal that she wasn't comfortable with how the drug search was performed.
What are you allegating that my officer did? He said, can I just have you pull up your shirt and show me that there's no drugs in there? It's like, I really don't think that's a good idea. I think I'm about to have to I'm just offended that he asked me to do that.
Still searching Contreras' purse, Marshal Fox doesn't like what he's hearing.
Okay, so the story stands, handcuff her, you
Why
bring
would I
her
be
in.
handcuffed? Why would I be arrested?
Hold on.
For what, sir?
Hold on.
Okay, why would I be arrested? Can you please tell me? Can you please tell me?
Because of false allegations made against the police officer, so.
What?
Making a false allegation against a police officer? In this context, that wouldn't even be a crime in Clark County.
For what?
Hearing master Patricia Doninger turns her back on the situation.
Please tell me. Can you please tell me?
Then, without getting any further explanation of the charges, she asked to have Contreras' daughter removed from the courtroom.
Can we do something with the little
I'm
girl?
not arrested though.
If you could call up Child Haven for me.
Child Haven is the county's child protective services facility. In just a matter of minutes, Contreras went from appearing at a routine court hearing to getting arrested and now having her daughter taken away from her.
You're saying it.
Now turn around. I will also have the subject.
Okay, stop. What did I do to anyone? Leave me alone, please.
Tell the truth.
Tell the
Tell the
truth.
truth.
I don't want to press charges. I don't want to do one. I just wanted to end.
Jimmy, I got court. I just have to do this, so. Arrest her. I take the kid. We're done.
Why would you
Hey,
do that,
Judy.
sir?
Because you're making
I'm
false
not making
allegations.
false allegations, sir. Why would you put me in this position? I'm a good person. No, I don't want to deal with this, please. I just want to end it. Okay, it was all lies. It was all lies. It was all lies. It was all lies. Let me go home.
So
Why would you be
let's,
arresting me
on
right
record,
now?
on tape. In the courtroom.
I just want to go home, please. I just want to go home, please.
Sounds like Contreras is going to recant her statement about the marshal's inappropriate handling of the drug search. Or maybe not.
Who's telling me I left? Mr. Sander, get him out of here. Get him out of here. Get him out of here.
We're back in Las Vegas, Nevada, where 26-year-old Monica Contreras is being searched by courtroom marshal Ron Fox. They just came back from another room where Contreras alleges he searched her inappropriately.
Can I just have you pull up your shirt and show me that there's no drugs in there?
Marshal Fox doesn't like what he's hearing.
Arrest her. I take the kid. We're done.
Why would you
Hey,
do that,
Judy.
sir?
Because you're making
I'm
false
not making
allegations.
false allegations, sir. Why would you put me in this position? I'm a good person. No. That's what happened. You put me in the room and you asked me to lift up my shirt without a witness. You asked me to lift my shirt without a witness.
As she's handcuffed in front of her young daughter, Contreras singles out hearing master Doninger for seemingly ignoring her pleas for help.
How could you do this to me? How could you what? How could you what? You asked me to pull up my shirt and leave me alone. I don't want to go to jail. I'm just trying to defend myself. without a witness. He said, can you please pull up your shirt without a witness?
You've already lied. It's on record.
I need his life. I need his life.
Contreras is taken to jail, formally charged with providing false information to a police officer and disturbing the peace. Her daughter's turned over to special services until the girl's father picked her up later that day. 2 months after the incident, Contreras filed a complaint against Marshall Fox, claiming that in addition to improper protocol, the officer also groped her breast and buttocks during the drug search. An investigation by Clark County Internal Affairs would validate her claims. She was later awarded $200,000 in a court settlement. As for those responsible for the courtroom injustice, the perpetrator, Marshal Ron Fox, was fired immediately following the investigation. Marshal James Kenyon was later relieved of his duties, and hearing master Patricia Doniger was out 2 years later after the video went public. For our next story, we head to Raleigh, North Carolina for the trial of Jonathan Sander.
Specifically planned by him as suggested by the jail phone calls that you've heard in this case, and they are calculated.
Sanders charged with first-degree murder in the killing of his next-door neighbors, Sandy Mazzella, his wife, Stephanie, and Mazzella's mother, Elaine.
It's framed.
All right.
That's the way it is. And justice will be served.
The Mazzellas and Sanders were friends and business partners until things began to unravel a few months before the killing. Sander was accused of sexual misconduct by the Mazzella's 14-year-old daughter. And according to police, it was these allegations motivated Sander to enter the Mazzella home armed with a shotgun and murder the 3 victims. While speaking to police, Sander admitted he was responsible.
I know it was me. I know I did whatever happened. I know it was me.
Even with this confession, Sander pleads not guilty, claiming he was set up and that the real killer is Sandy Mazzella's father. And during the trial, Sander wasn't shy about sharing his other opinions regarding the killing.
There was no blood under it. Mr. Sander, please be quiet. It's fact. Mr. Sander, Mr. Sander.
And what were her last words?
What everybody else did that's watching us.
Whatever.
No blood under that wound.
Mr. Sander, please be...
This is my life involved. I was frank.
Remove him from the courtroom, please.
You move me from the courtroom.
Throughout the trial, Sander continued to lash out.
And
You're telling me I blasted
Mr. Sander, get him out of here. Get him out of here. Get him out here. Mr. Sander, Mr. Sander, Mr. Sander.
We're back in Raleigh, North Carolina, to learn the fate of accused murderer Jonathan Sander. After a trial lasting several weeks, a jury comes back with a unanimous verdict.
We, the jury, by unanimous verdict, find the defendant, John Frederick Sander, to be guilty of first-degree murder of Sandy Mazzella, guilty of first-degree murder of Stephanie Mazzella, guilty of first-degree murder of Elaine Mazzella.
Sanders convicted on all charges, but he's not done speaking out.
I did shoot Sandy. I barely wounded him. After I left, Sal Mazzella shot and killed his family. Why? For insurance money.
When Sander was finished, it was Superior Court Judge Graham Shirley who had the final word.
I want you to realize that if you live out your life expectancy of 25.1 years, that 2-minute period is going to have to repeat itself 6,578,000 times before you take your last breath. And when you take your last breath, you're going to die alone and you're going to die forgotten.
Jonathan Sander was sentenced to life in prison, no chance of parole. We now head to Collin County Courthouse in McKinney, Texas. The young man set to appear before the judge is 16-year-old Armani Green. He spent parts of his childhood homeless, followed by 5 years in foster care. In 2018, he participated in a program called Wednesday's Child, which curates memorable moments for foster children in hopes of finding them a permanent family. Most kids choose to spend the day enjoying entertaining activities. Armani chose a different route. He wanted to spend the day feeding members of the local homeless community. And that's where he met fellow volunteer Laterris Whitfield.
This is what we're going to end up taking to the homeless community.
Whitfield took Armani to Two Podners BBQ, where they picked up chopped beef sandwiches to bring to those in need. Then, something amazing happened.
He said, would they mind if I prayed for them?
I asked Father God that you would just watch over them, protect them, keep them safe.
And that's still the deal. Instant tears. I was like, okay, God, I see exactly what you're doing, and this is my son.
This is it.
1 year later, surrounded by family and friends and decked out in matching suits,
Congratulations.
Whitfield and Armani officially became father and son. Armani chose to make other lives better, and as a result, his life became better than ever. Laterris Whitfield and Armani Green, thanks for joining us. Armani, take us back to the day when adoption became official.
When we got there, I was like, wow, this is really about to happen.
And to see this big smile on his face, the whole courtroom was full of people that had been involved in Armani's journey. Armani was in foster care for 5.5 years, so he met a whole lot of people. But the one that was consistent was the judge. And to see the judge shed a tear, because they looked at Armani as being one of those kids that would never get adopted. And to see him standing up there in a suit, young African-American male of purpose and of substance, really broke me down to tears.
Everybody in that room was crying. It was just amazing.
Armani, when did you find out that this was actually happening?
That's the crazy thing. I actually didn't know any of this was going on. I met him when we fed the homeless, and I was like, okay, that was really powerful. And then I'm just, living my life back at my foster home. And then I think a year later, he actually came to visit me, and we went out to eat. And I was like, hey, what made you want to pick me up? I haven't seen you in a while. I said, oh, I feel like I can, just mentor you and help you on your journey to become who you are. Okay, that's cool. Little did I know that him revisiting me wasn't a coincidence at all. He was actually behind the scenes doing classes, paperwork, check-ins, and all kinds of stuff to actually adopt me. And I didn't know none of this was happening. Crazy.
Laterris, how's your life changed?
Armani teaches me a lot about even my own deficiencies. I'm not the most patient person, and so with Armani, he's teaching me a lot about patience. I raised a daughter, so I'm a #girl dad. So raising a young man is totally different. And so he's teaching me a lot about myself. He's teaching me a lot about patience. He's teaching me a lot about love.
Laterris Whitfield and Armani Green, your story has moved me, and I'm sure everyone who is watching this. Thank you so much for joining us, and good luck to both of you.
Thank you, Dan, for having us.
That's all for this edition of Court Cam. I'm Dan Abrams. Thanks for watching. Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Abrams, and this is Court Cam.
We, the jury, find the defendant.
Don't touch me like that.
Come back up here right
A
now.
warning, this first story is disturbing. We're in a Berrien County courtroom, and defendant Larry Gordon is seated in the jury box, just off screen to the right. He faces up to life in prison if convicted on charges of armed first-degree criminal sexual conduct, first-degree criminal sexual conduct during a felony, felony kidnapping, and felony assault with a dangerous weapon. The bailiff signals to the deputy just out of camera shot to escort Gordon, whose hands are cuffed in front, back to his holding cell. A gunshot is fired, sending people in the courtroom running for cover. Somehow the defendant, still cuffed, managed to wrestle the deputy's weapon away and shoot him. Everyone's ordered out of the courtroom. Some run for cover into a nearby stairwell. Three more shots fired. The defendant has now shot 2 bailiffs and a deputy. Another bailiff from an adjacent courtroom races to intercept the gunman. There's the defendant now, pushing his way out. The defendant now runs in the same direction where a group of people from the courtroom have taken cover. With guns drawn, several bailiffs now have the defendant cornered. You can hear one of the bailiffs ordering him to drop his weapon. The situation going from bad to worse. The defendant's now taken hostages. It now sounds like the defendant's having one of the hostages attempt to kick down a locked door to help him escape. You can see the defendant moving across the hallway with hostages as some others break free and run for cover. More gunshots as people in the courthouse struggle to find a place for cover. A hostage is hit as still more hostages break away. The hostage who was just shot is helped into the courtroom by some others who've managed to escape.
315, we need backup. Yes, 315, 2 have been shot, 1 bailiff down.
This nightmare scenario finally comes to an end when officers fatally shoot Gordon as he tries to run. Sheriff's deputy and one of the hostages were shot by Gordon, but survived. 2 bailiffs of the court were killed.
Both bailiffs have been law enforcement officers for a long time, and they've been bailiffs for the last 10 years. Our hearts are torn apart. They were our friends. They were my colleagues. I have known them for over 30 years. So it's a sad day.
A handwritten note from Gordon found in his jail cell clearly spells out his premeditated escape or die trying plan. We're at the Muskegon County District Court in Muskegon, Michigan. The man seated here is 46-year-old Vashon Flowers. Flowers is being charged with open murder, which covers first and second-degree murder and manslaughter. The victim? His wife, Jamie Thomas Flowers. Vashon Flowers allegedly shot Jamie at the end of a prolonged, physically violent argument over his smoking. Flowers is in court today for a preliminary hearing, which is held to determine if there's enough evidence to move a case to circuit court for trial. In the gallery is the victim's son, London Thomas. As everyone in the court takes a seat, Thomas seems to keep his eyes on Flowers. It looks like the only thing standing between Thomas and the man who allegedly murdered his mother is a small wall and 25 feet of carpet. London Thomas gets within inches of Flowers before he's wrestled down by a team of security members. Thomas is arrested and held in contempt of court. As a result, he's no longer allowed to attend any future hearings connected to the case. The case against Vashon Flowers moves forward. He's denied bail and remains in custody awaiting trial.
Court hereby sentences the defendant to 10 years MSP. You can my head.
Next, we head to the Butte Justice Court in Butte, Montana. This is James Wasson. He's in court today to receive his sentence for multiple charges, including criminal endangerment, intimidation, and assault on a peace officer stemming from a police pursuit which ended with an hours-long standoff. A SWAT team was called to the scene, and it took a police negotiator hours to get him to surrender peacefully. Wasson's looking to enter a plea for a lesser sentence, Prosecutors recommending 50 years with 25 suspended. But because he's a repeat offender with a long criminal history, the judge gives him even more.
The court hereby sentences the defendant to 10 years MSP with 3 years suspended. And in relation to counts 2, 6, 7, and 11, the court also sentences the defendant to 10 years MSP.
The 5 counts at 10 years each add up to 50 years with only 15 suspended. That's 35 years total. That's much more time than Wasson was expecting.
Each of these counts shall run consecutive to each other. Is 50 years MSP? Is 50 years with MSP to 15 to be here suspended?
James, sit up.
He was arrested on November 3rd, 2017. You would have credit from that date.
We shall give credits for you.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else, please?
Would be standard conditions of probation.
And during that time period, the court would also enter the standards of motions and standard conditions. You can come up. Eddie. James.
Wasson is currently serving his time in the Montana State Prison. Next, we head to Jefferson County Circuit Court in Louisville, Kentucky.
You are on the record, Commonwealth versus Rayton Woodford.
Allegation, which is quite serious.
This is 29-year-old Rayton Woodford. He's in the courtroom today for a probation revocation hearing. He'd previously been sentenced to probation for drugs and weapons charges, but violated the terms.
Discovery.
Sitting a few feet away is Woodford's girlfriend.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be truthful?
During Woodford's hearing, a detective provides testimony.
That evening, he was charged with a handgun and narcotics.
And if you know, was Mr. Woodford at the time a convicted felon?
Yes, he was.
Once the testimony concludes, the camera, controlled by Judge Barry Willett, remains locked on the empty witness chair as the judge announces his decision.
Probation revoked in its entirety. Mr. Woodford, I'm going to send you to serve 5 years. Good luck to you. No, ma'am.
That flash across the screen was Woodford making a run for it. Woodford's girlfriend can be heard pleading with her boyfriend to stop.
The record will reflect that Mr. Woodford made an unsuccessful effort to escape.
Woodford is stopped by deputies. He's brought back into the courtroom now and taken into custody. Woodford's girlfriend's upset about her treatment by deputies as she was caught up in the tussle to stop Woodford from escaping.
Well, that's a first in 19 years on the bench. She did tackle him on the way out. Are you okay?
A short while later, Woodford's girlfriend requests permission to address the judge about what happened to her.
We're back on the record in the Woodford case, and Mr. Woodford's girlfriend would like to talk to the court.
I didn't do anything. I tried to stop him.
I noticed that.
There's no reason for him to put his hands on me.
Woodford's girlfriend's pointing to a sheriff's deputy who helped prevent Woodford's escape, and in doing so, allegedly had to pull her out of the fray.
He didn't matter. I didn't pose any kind of threat to anybody in here. He told that I tried to stop him.
What I saw was that Mr. Woodford made an unsuccessful attempt to escape the courtroom, and he was apprehended by law enforcement.
But I understand that. I tried to stop that, but there's no reason for that man to have to put my heart history.
Okay.
But you condone that, right?
I'm not condoning any. No, wait a minute. Come back up here right now.
Okay.
Don't you tell me I'm condoning anything. I just told you what I observed. You made an effort to stop him from leaving. I appreciate that. But in the thick of it, when your boyfriend is fighting with deputies, people might get pushed out of the way. Maybe it was for your own safety. He was going to hurt somebody. So don't tell me I'm condoning anything. I did not say that. Anything else you'd like to say to me?
No, sir.
Thank you.
She leaves the courtroom and is not charged. Rayton Woodford begins serving a 5-year sentence in a Kentucky prison. He now faces an additional charge of second-degree escape. We're now in Carson, California. And this woman, former Mayor Vera Robles DeWitt, has just finished addressing the city council in an effort to recall current Mayor Jim Deere. Watch closely as she leaves the chambers. That woman is Public Works Commissioner Jan Schaefer, a supporter of the mayor. Watch again closely. DeWitt swats Schaefer on the back of the head with some papers, causing her to fall to the ground in apparent agony. One more time in slow motion.
Mr. Mayor, she's struck the woman, she should be arrested.
And now that's the mayor calling for DeWitt to be immediately arrested, which she is.
We're going to call a doctor. Let's just take the recess, Mr. Mayor.
DeWitt is charged with misdemeanor battery, but the charges are eventually dropped when DeWitt agrees to take anger management classes and pay $1,500 for Schaefer's medical expenses. Believe it or not, Schaefer suffered no serious injuries as a result of this incident. Now we move to the Hamilton County Courthouse in Cincinnati, Ohio, where an attorney opens a holding tank to let out the next defendant to appear before the judge. This is that defendant. This one has other plans. What he doesn't know is that he's already been spotted by this officer. And his escape route is literally lined with 8 more. The defendant is pursued by no less than 5 officers. The stampede of officers is so loud, it gets the attention of everyone in this adjacent room. He's finally cornered at the other end of the hallway and brought back to the cell. Along with his previous charges of criminal trespassing and theft, Jeffrey Hope also faces a charge of third-degree felony escape attempt. From an ill-conceived escape attempt to an ill-conceived arrival. Looks like a typical morning outside the Tulsa County Courthouse in Oklahoma. That is, until this man shows up. To say he's underdressed is an understatement. He's wearing nothing but a shirt, leather harness, and shoes. And to be clear, without this blur here, you'd see it all. Besides the occasional glance, there is surprisingly little reaction. Until he gets to the security checkpoint, where he's immediately arrested and taken into custody. Brian Edward Johnson is booked into jail on a complaint of indecent exposure. He's later released after posting $2,000 bond. So why did 55-year-old Johnson show his 55-year-old Johnson? Believe it or not, he says it was all part of a dare. Next time, maybe he should go for the truth and nothing but. Now to the Cuyahoga County Common Pleas Court in Cleveland, Ohio. This man, David Chiselton, has been convicted of aggravated arson and felony assault. He's here today to receive his sentence. Investigators claim Chiselton beat his girlfriend with a pistol, then held her hostage before setting an apartment complex on fire. Fortunately, no one else was injured in the fire. Chiselton is handcuffed in the front. This is unusual. Typically, convicts are handcuffed with their hands behind their backs for security purposes. The reason you can't hear the audio is because the body cam of the bailiff hasn't yet fully engaged. But we can tell you that the judge is sentencing him to 47 years at this very moment. And he is not happy about that. The man he just attacked was his own attorney, Aaron Brockler.
Hey, yeah, you calm? Yeah. You know you messed up, right? You understand that, right? Okay? Listen, when I uncuff you, put your hand behind your back. Do you understand? Okay?
They're now cuffing him behind his back.
Relax your hand.
3 deputies escort Chiselton out of the courtroom.
Yeah. We're good.
And down to the holding cell.
SRT!
He assaulted his own attorney just right after he got sentenced to 45 years. So right now, assault at least.
He's charged with 1 count of felonious assault and now faces the possibility of an even longer sentence. Joining me now is the attorney that you see on that video, Aaron Brockler. Thank you so much for coming in. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So take us to the moment before he attacks you. Were you talking to him? Was he just responding to the judge?
I was talking to him, telling him that I was going to come and see him in the jail because there may be some things that we could do to help, mitigate the sentence a little bit. Then he turned and looked at his daughter in the courtroom, uttered a profanity to her, and that's when he struck me.
Have you ever had anything like that happen to you before?
No, because there's generally safeguards in place. Specifically, usually they're cuffed from behind, and 9 out of 10 times you get along well with the client. You're there to help him. I think he just was overwhelmed the years he got.
Was he expecting a lesser sentence?
I don't think he was expecting it. I think he was hoping for it, and I prepared him for the fact that expect them to argue for the max. We'll argue for the minimum. Judge will probably come out somewhere in the middle. She actually was below the middle, but I think he just seeing his ex and seeing his child there, and then hearing the amount of years probably just led to a breakdown for him.
What sort of injuries did you endure?
He broke my nose, got me on the left side of my nose, so I may have to have some surgery there to improve the breathing. I believe that I lost consciousness when it happened. Well, I think that he knocked me out, and then I fell into the table and then landed underneath the trial table. When I woke up, people were like, "Are you okay?" It was like taking a slap shot in the face. My head was just ringing, and I was like, "Whoa!" Because I didn't see it coming. It was a total sucker punch. Yeah.
Aaron Brockler, thanks very much for coming in. We appreciate it, and good luck with the ongoing recovery.
Thank you.
That is it for this edition of Court Cam. Thanks for watching. See you next time.